Welcome to the third part of the Infinite Energy files. In this series, I try to explain a lot of topics related to the in-game universe of Pokémon, how it became what it is, and the inspiration behind the lore of the games. In the previous two videos, I explained the origins of Team Plasma, what happened in the Kalos War, what is infinite energy, how Ho-Oh is capable of reviving Pokémon, how Pokéballs were created, and more. This video will focus on Necrozma, explaining the inspiration behind it and the connections it has to other legendary Pokémon in the series, and what the auras are. So let's dive into File 8 and the origins of Necrozma. In parts 1 and 2, I explained how the infinite energy is the universal life force, being present during Mega and Standard evolution. It is also linked to Arceus and the Sea Crystals. AC, who had knowledge of this energy, used it in a non-threatening way for the life of Pokémon to build the Kalos region, as stated in Lysander's archives. This energy is present in the life plates. This is the reason why they power up the moves of the type each one represents. The Sea Crystals do exactly the same. Ultra Sun and Ultramoon give us more information about the Sea Crystals. We learn from the Ultra Recon squad that there is some kind of energy known as auras. These auras can be found all over Alola, and they are the energy obtained from Necrozma's light. Not only this, but they are the same as the Sea Power and the auras we can see in Totem Pokémon. As I already explained, this energy is the same as infinite energy, but how does it relate to Ultra Necrozma's typing? Well, Ultra Necrozma is a Psychic Dragon type Pokémon. The Psychic type is linked to different kinds of abilities related to the mind. As I said in part 1, the infinite energy is related to Azot, the universal life force. The Azot is the light of nature or mind of God. The Azot is also present in the esoteric Jewish concept of the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah includes a principle called the Tree of Life, concept depicting the process the light or power of God goes through to create. Here, Azot appears as Ein Sof. Ein Sof is God prior to his self-manifestation in the production of any spiritual realm. From Ein Sof comes a concept known as Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, divine self-knowledge nullified within Ein Sof prior to creation. Here we can already see the connection to the mind. Now, there is a book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, that gives us a huge piece of information. The universe is surrounded by a sphere of light or stars. Beyond that sphere is Shamayim, the Hebrew word for heaven, who is the divine fiery water, the first outflow of the word of God, the flaming river pouring from the presence of the eternal mind. In our universe, his fire becomes solar fire and his water becomes lunar water. Shamayim is the universal Mercury or Azot, the measureless spirit of life. That original spiritual fiery water comes through Edem and pours itself into the four main rivers of the four elements. Here is mentioned the element Mercury. This element in alchemy is linked to the mind, and what this text explains is that Azot is some sort of Anima Mundi, an intrinsic connection between all living things on the planet. In alchemy and the Kabbalah, this has a very peculiar name, Arceus, one of the inspirations for the Pokémon god Arceus. Arceus is the lowest and most dense aspect of the astral plane, which presides over the growth and continuation of all living beings. So, Ein Sof emanates or Ein Sof, the infinite light. This one travels through the 22 connecting paths, each one represented by one letter, and in the end, thanks to Arceus, the Azot becomes creation in the last Sephiroth, the one that represents Earth. This is what infinite energy is, the light of the mind of God, the ultimate substance, which is the actual meaning of Ein Sof, an energy that surrounds and makes us all, an Anima Mundi. This isn't by any means the first time these concepts are used in pop culture. The idea of infinite energy as Anima Mundi is the same as the Force in Star Wars or the Ki in Dragon Ball, and the Tree of Life can be seen in Full Metal Alchemist and two personal favorites of mine, Evangelion and Ghost in the Shell. Also, the Arceus is divided in 4 parts: chemical, life, light, and reflective. According to alchemists, there is people, clairvoyants, who can see the chemical and life aspects of living creatures. Both of them are seen as aura. Enter Lucario. Lucario is, as Eevee, very sensitive to infinite energy. Eevee has many evolutions because of this, while Lucario is sensitive to auras, being able to see them. Lucario is also the first Pokémon to Mega Evolve using a Megastone. This is also a consequence of being sensitive to infinite energy. Now I mentioned the life plates. In-game, there is an important detail about their location. In the Johto remakes, they are handed by the SS Aqua Captain, who says he got them in Sinnoh. In Auras, they can be found while surfing. In Unova, they all appear in the Evolved ruins or handed by people who found them there previously. In Alola, you can find or buy them in Hawali City and its surroundings. This is different in both Kalos and Sinnoh. These items are originally from Sinnoh, and Kalos is where they were used as batteries for technology. Most of the plates in these regions appear in routes without any relevance or the underground, but there is an exception for one plate, the Mind Plate. This plate is found in the Solaceon ruins and Route 10. The Solaceon ruins are connected to the Sinjo ruins and to Arceus due to the presence of Unknown. Kalos Route 10 is the most important in the whole region. Here is where AC sacrificed thousands of Pokémon to power his ultimate weapon. I've been pointing the connection between AC, Infinite Energy and Necrozma for a while, but there is a major piece of evidence that I haven't mentioned yet. In Ultrasun and Ultramon, if you go to the library in Manly City, you can learn what the C in C moves means. The C means zenith. Zenith is an imaginary point directly above a particular location, but it has another meaning, the time at which something is most powerful. Well, English-speaking players may not have noticed it, but as a native Spanish speaker, I immediately noticed a reference: Parfum Palace. This place in Spanish is named Palacio Zenith. The connection to AC, Infinite Energy, and Alchemy keeps going deeper as we notice that the German name for this place is Magnum Opus, the alchemical process of creating the Philosopher's Stone. Not only this, Junichi Masuda stated in the past that AC's height is a consequence of his contact with the ultimate weapon. If this energy is the same as the auras from Alola, this will explain the size of totem Pokémon. As AC, they were in contact with infinite energy, causing accelerated growth. And probably this is why AC's Floed is stronger than the average Floed. Also, this explains Marshadow's Zenith form. When Marshadow uses its full power, takes this form. The Zenith part may relate to infinite energy, as showed in the Pokémon movie I Choose You. Marshadow uses Ho-Oh's power, which we know is infinite energy. With all this information, we can say that Necrozma absorbs infinite energy and irradiates it as light. and that infinite energy is the same that gives life to all living creatures. This is why when performing Ultra Necrozma's C move, we can see Necrozma obtaining energy from its trainer. But what about the dragon type? Well, as I said, the mind is represented in alchemy through the element Mercury. Geoffrey Chaucer, one of the most important poets of the English language, wrote in his Canterbury Tales a fragment called the Canon's Yeoman's Tale, in which alchemy is heavily involved. At one point, the Yeoman will say, Sol and Luna are said to be the father and mother of the dragon Mercury and his brother Brimstone. Here, Mercury, the mind, is shown as a dragon accompanied by brimstone, an ancient word for sulfur. Mercury and sulfur were often depicted as two dragons. This image is an Ouroboros. Ouroboros is usually presented as only one dragon eating its own tail, but there are double Ouroboros, as the one that Mercury and sulfur represent.
I will talk more in detail about this in File 9,
where I'll discuss the origins of the Tao Trio. How does Necrozma relate to the Tao Trio? From what we talked previously, we know that AC and his brother had control over the original dragon, Reshiram and Zekrom after it, and infinite energy. This energy is what gives power to Necrozma. I already explained how Mercury represents mind and how it is the same as the Azot, but there is more to it, making Mercury one of the most complex alchemical symbols to explain. Going back to the Ouroboros, here we see sulfur and mercury. Those two elements with salt form a concept known as the tria prima, concept analogous to the Azot of the philosophers, idea that I will discuss in the next file. In the tria prima, sulfur and mercury take the place of anima and spiritus, terms with similar meanings, which makes them really easy to confuse. As Paracelsus said, mercury is the spirit, sulfur is the soul, and salt is the body. To make it simple, in alchemy they are seen as consciousness and mind. These two opposite elements together were represented by a symbol named the two contraries. This image shows two dragons, one black with scales and one white with feathers. The black dragon is Sophic Mercury and the white dragon is Sophic Sulfur. I guess you can already tell how Reshiram and Zekrom are related to this drawing. These principles, being so closely tied, made it difficult at times for alchemists to distinguish between them, and many times they appear to be two sides of the same coin. But they together, as complements for each other, give form to the full spirit. Here is where the third part of the equation is created. When brought together, the union of sulfur and mercury has the power to create salt, or a body, and together form the tria prima, the three primes, the three basic elements of the magnum opus. Salt is the body, the child of sulfur and mercury. This is where Curem comes from. Curem is the remnant of Reshiram and Zekrom, the body they left behind. And I know, the Tao Trio is based off Taoism and the concept of the yin and yang, but alchemy has its origins in China and Taoism. Yin and yang were used in Chinese alchemy as contraries that complemented each other. They also are mercury and sulfur. And in the same way, the yin and yang is about balance. What salt does is keeping balance between the two contraries. Again, according to Paracelsus, all things have been made real by and through the spirit, and the spirit is made real by the soul, our sulfur. This spirit is our mercury, the mercury of the three principles, the mind of matter.
Here we have our connection to the infinite energy, and Azot, the mind of God. Mercury is the infinite light of God's mind, who started creating after gaining consciousness in a dialogue within itself. We can also add the Aurelia Occulta from the Theatrum Chemicum, in which Mercury is talking about himself. I am the poison-dripping dragon, who is everywhere and can be cheaply had. My water and fire destroy and put together. From my body you may extract the green lion and the red. By the philosophers I am named Mercurius. My spouse is the god. I am the old dragon found everywhere on the globe of the earth. Father and mother, young and old, very strong and very weak, death and resurrection, visible and invincible, hard and soft. I descend into the earth and ascend into the heavens. I am the highest and the lowest, the lightest and the heaviest. I am dark and light. I am the carbuncle of the sun, through which you may change copper, iron, tin, and lead into gold. From here also comes the influence to Necrozma's typing. The poison and the dripping dragon are both Mercury, and the Mercury is mind. Therefore, Ultra Necrozma is the poison dripping dragon. Now there is something interesting to point out. The Tria Prima is represented by a three-headed dragon, the three elements combined, but we never see the original dragon. But maybe Hydreigon is a representation of this, replacing the original dragon as the three-headed dragon of that generation, without making the reference too obvious. In the same way they used Hydreigon, Game Freak may have created Naganadel as a way of using the same concept they used to make Ultra Necrozma. Necrozma is the poison-dripping dragon representing Mercury, and Naganadel is a literal poison-dripping dragon. The Aurelia Occulta mentions a green lion. This is an alchemical concept that inspired Solgaleo, so let's proceed to the next file where I'll be explaining the origins behind Solgaleo, Lunala, Necrozma, and what they represent as a trio. Let's continue from where we left. Solgaleo is based off the green lion that eats the sun from Alchemy, which represents the purification of metals, and Lunala is based off a symbol from astrology showing a crab grabbing a moon with bat wings. And this is why Lunala, when fused with Necrozma, has crab-like pincers. But Necrozma, Solgaleo, and Lunala, or as I like to call them, the Light Trio, are also based off the three components of the Azot. This is a common depiction of Azot. This image tries to capture what the whole universe is made of. First, we have the four limbs of the man showing the four elements. One foot is on land, earth, the other one is in the sea, water. He is holding with his right hand a torch, fire, and in the other hand a feather, air. Inside the circle we can see the 7 alchemical processes, their elements and planets. But the most interesting part is in the inverted triangle. Here we can see the two contraries, Spiritus and Anima. Spiritus is Mercury, mind, while Anima is Sulfur, consciousness. Their symbols are Luna and Sol, silver and gold. In the lower side of the triangle we can see the third element of this trinity, corpus, body. Corpus is represented by a cube or prism. This prism is a chunk of ether, the fifth element, which many thought was the material that the night sky was made of. And those stars may explain Necrozma's star. The prism absorbs the light of the sun and the moon. This guarantees power over the Azot. This is what the Philosopher's Stone does. Prisms diffract the light, creating rainbows. Rainbows are heavily linked to the process of the magnum opus, to the phoenix and the peacock. Each stage of the process has a color in the peacock's tail. All of this is what gives Ho-Oh its control over infinite energy. Going back to the Azoth triangle, in the circle we can read Visita interiora terrae rectificando invenies occultum lapidem. Visit the interior of the earth, and rectifying you will find the hidden stone. This explains the spiritual process the alchemist has to go through when trying to make the Philosopher's Stone, but it also is an acronym for V.I.T.R.I.O.L. V.I.T.R.I.O.L comes from the Latin word for glassy, and in alchemy, V.I.T.R.I.O.L were different pieces of colored glass. This may be the origin of the sea crystals, especially having into consideration that sometimes V.I.T.R.I.O.L was in a liquid form and was used to purify the metals, as the Green Lion will do. This means connecting metals to their higher state, what sea moves do with Pokemon moves. Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozma are capable of opening portals to other worlds. These portals are named Ultra Wormholes. This characteristic may be related to the Green Lion that devours the sun. As described in the Cosmopolite, there is this one Green Lion which closes and opens the 7 indissoluble seals of the 7 metallic spirits, which torments the bodies until it has perfected them. We see that the Green Lion purifies the metals, connecting them into a higher state, turning them into gold. This is what the seals represent. The metaphor translates to Pokemon as the portals. Also, Mercury was the Greek god of communication. He was the messenger of the gods, the communicator standing between the two worlds. The presence of Mercury, mind, or a spirit unified and made what appears to be separate whole, placing soul into body and mind into matter. In the mythical stories of Greece and Rome, Mercury was known as a messenger between the realm of immortal gods and the realm of mortal men. He was the boundary maker. As he was the only one who traveled between the 3 realms, the element Mercury is the only one that alchemists describe to exist in 3 states of matter. Infinite energy being the Pokemon equivalent of Azoth, and this is Mercury, gives Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozma the ability to open portals, as Mercury acted as a link between worlds. Arceus used infinite energy to create the Pokemon world. His creation is held together by Unknown. AC and his brother worshipped Arceus and learned about infinite energy. This energy is analogous of the mind of Arceus, as the Azoth is equivalent of God's mind. Said energy is what gives life and power to all things in the Pokemon world. Necrozma, Solgaleo, and Lunala are some kind of guardians of this energy. They use it not only as their source of power, but also as the means to open portals to other worlds. The Sinjo ruins are an altar for Arceus, where people started worshipping Ho-Oh. This religion is practiced by the Kimono Girls and their brother V.I.T.R.I.O.L. People that were part of that religion created the Pokeballs. This is the end of part 3 and the main theory about infinite energy. I will make a couple more videos about the subject, but they are standalone entries. If you made it this far, thanks for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. The next video will be talking about the Kimono Girls and Togepi. So hope to see you soon and good luck.